Greetings. For your information, this is the answer. I'm Alan Deckert. It's July 5th, 2018. At the rate we're going, the world is spending $1.7 trillion per year on the military. Almost half that belongs to the United States, which is spending more than the next 8 largest combined. The United States military is the largest employer in the world. And what's their product? Security? Or is it fear? Broken bodies, broken buildings, broken cities, mayhem, death and destruction, mental difficulties, scrambled brains, shell shock, post-traumatic stress disorder. For all their spending, are Americans immune to military threats? Or does it make them targets? What might we accomplish if we redirect these resources to positive programs instead? In his 1961 farewell address, President Eisenhower said that disarmament is possible. He also said it's our ultimate goal. Another U.S. general, Douglas MacArthur, said, by the way, it's tough to pick out a great quote about disarmament from General MacArthur because there are so many. From the end of World War II to his death nearly 20 years later, he said it over and over again, we must abolish war altogether. This is from a 1955 speech. We should now proclaim our readiness to abolish war in concert with the great powers of the world. The result would be magical. Who could be against this? Profiteers, chicken hawks, and their acolytes. Where do you stand on the issue of disarmament? Others have said disarmament is possible. I'm not the only one. I think you know that. And if you try, I think you'll hear it. Here's a hint. People in California don't worry about war with, say, Nevada. These two states are part of the same federation and are constitutionally prohibited from making war. What about peace? The way constitutions are supposed to work is that our rights are spelled out and then governments are constructed to secure these rights. Can you find your right to peace in the Constitution? It's not there. The United States Constitution grants the federal government the exclusive right to wage war while you have no right to peace. What if we made peace a human right, a right that governments are legally, constitutionally required to secure? We need to do this. It's time. The Committee for Open Source Global Governance has completed initial drafts of 2 interlocking constitutions, one for the world and one for the United States. We need support from 38 states in the United States. A similar number of countries are needed to become charter members of the new federation. Can we do this? We think so. My late friend David Brower once told me, never say I. Say we. Sometimes individuals have to take some initiative, but we know that you're not going to get very far alone. We are working with people all over the world to perfect these documents. Someone will always find something in these 2 constitutions they don't like, but we know they can become good enough to achieve widespread acceptance. Many years ago, I attended a talk by Joe Duvall, who was speaking about his book. He began his presentation by placing a $100 bill on the podium. Then he challenged the audience, saying, the first person who can tell us the purpose of government, as stated in the Declaration of Independence, can have the $100. There was some silence. Then he said, it's 4 words. Now, I wanted the $100, but I couldn't come up with the 4 words. Nobody got it. and there were about 50 people there. Mr. Duval then gave us the 4 words and the context. Jefferson began the Declaration of Independence by enumerating a few of our inherent rights, then wrote that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. So those are the 4 words, to secure these rights. That's what government is for. 3 things. First, I agree, as many have said, the Declaration of Independence is the best statement of principles on which the United States government was founded, and it is true and correct. Today, the most relevant of these principles is that it's the right of the people to alter or abolish the government. Secondly, the first 2 attempts to create a United States government included many of these principles, but also contained some serious flaws. The 1787 Constitution was, of course, much stronger, but now suffers increasingly from errors of omission. There have been many changes to society they could never have imagined. The current Constitution simply cannot provide guidance on many modern issues. Third, the purpose of government, as Joe Duvall pointed out, has been forgotten, including by people who are on the payrolls of governments at various levels. Now for some of the responses. I enjoy all the comments and questions, positive or negative, and I'd like to hear from you, so please write to me directly. Or you can reach us online. The first one today is from Pete, who writes, "You will never be able to get enough people behind a constitutional convention as you describe. Even if your process gains enough traction to bring about the convention, it will not be your constitution that gets promoted." Well, Pete says a couple things. First, he says you can't do it. Perfectly normal. Practically everyone says that. Then he seems to imply that it might be possible to get a convention started, but we could not control it. Well, I don't think Pete understands the process we're talking about, but maybe that's my fault for not being clear. Article 5 is the relevant article in the Constitution. However, the wording is very loose when it comes to how such a convention could be done. In the 1780s, they didn't have the internet, they didn't have email, they didn't have telephones, not even telegraph machines. Mail was delivered by Pony Express. Oh wait, the Pony Express was during the Gold Rush, which is much later. The Pony Express is more modern. Back then, I believe they had stagecoaches. Delivery was on stagecoaches, that's right. They had stagecoaches. In any case, bringing people together in the same room to work on the Constitution was the practical way to do it in 1787. Today, there is no need for people to attend an in-person meeting for the purpose of writing. The Committee for Open Source Global Governance will call a constitutional convention if and only if the constitutions have been satisfactorily completed, we have 3/4 of the states in the United States, and a good number of countries around the world ready to sign. Their agreement with us would be transmitted electronically before the convention, something they could not have imagined 230 years ago. In other words, the Constitutional Convention will be to formalize what we've already agreed to. All of the edits will have been completed beforehand. There have been thousands of people with ideas about making fundamental changes. Today, there are people who want to make the United States into a theocracy. Others want to make the United Nations into a world government. We're open to hearing what others propose, but they just have nothing to do with our proposal, except to say that a lot of people recognize big changes are needed and they're trying to do something. Next, Casey writes, "The newspaper referred to you as an engineer. What qualifies you? Why should I trust you to write constitutions? Have you even read the Constitution? How can you even call yourself an engineer? Do you have a degree in engineering? Well, I'll take the last one first. I don't have a degree in engineering. I got my degree in music. While I was studying music, I also took quite a few courses in technical subjects, including math, science, physics, engineering, and computer science. I never referred to myself as an engineer until I was hired as an engineer. With the job title of engineer, I worked on 9 commercial products with Borland International and Intel in the 1990s. Here's an example from Intel. It's an award thanking me for doing a great job on this product. By the way, this revolutionary product was in millions of computers around the world. Very successful. So if Intel wants to call me an engineer, we'll go with that. Have I read the Constitution? Yes, I have. And I've also read quite a few related things written before it and since then, including the Declaration of Independence and the Articles of Confederation. By the way, the full name was Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union between the States. In 1776, Americans formed the Perpetual Union between the states. Well, the Perpetual Union lasted about 10 years. It was badly flawed and had to be replaced before it self-destructed. What they gave us was a much stronger and more durable government. The 1787 Constitution included concepts like limited government, separation of powers, checks and balances, federalism. Excellent ideas. Bicameral legislature, 3 branches of government. As a system designer, I have to say, this was a good design. Perhaps the most important design change is in Article 5. The Articles of Confederation said that any change to the Articles had to be unanimously approved by all the states. The 1787 Constitution says that we can change the Constitution with approval from 3/4 of the states. In the post I made today, I listed 18 large developments since 1787, things that changed the world, including the electronic age, automobiles, airplanes, the internet, and so on. These things present unique legal challenges from which our current Constitution can offer no guidance. Lawmakers come up with laws that are poorly informed, and the Supreme Court issues rulings that are self-referencing inventions because the Constitution can provide no guidance on these issues. The only things you can learn about by reading the founders are things they knew about. They knew nothing about modern-day issues. In the past 100 years, revolutionary things have been happening in science and industry. In government, we have ossification. We've identified over 40 changes that are needed. And what about their notion of equality? Equality was the first right mentioned in the Declaration of Independence, but the Constitution endorsed inequality. It endorsed slavery. If you were a white landowning male, the Constitution was for you. Others couldn't even vote. Some of these baked-in flaws have been remedied, at least partially. Here's an example of one where they probably should have known better. Thomas Jefferson himself noted that the formulation of the Supreme Court was subject to political manipulation. Specifically, the Constitution gave judges lifetime appointments. The Chief Justice is the only member of the Supreme Court mentioned, and they left it to Congress to decide how many justices the Supreme Court should have. Originally, Congress set the number of justices at 6. Eventually, it became 9. Who's to say it shouldn't be 19? Do you see a problem with that? What if Congress made it 19? Would that be constitutional? Absolutely. The president would then have 10 lifetime appointments to make to the Supreme Court. At that point, anything would be possible, including dictatorship. It may seem unlikely, but it would be perfectly constitutional. For decades, scholars have been proposing remedies for this grotesque flaw. The best proposal I've read fixes the number of justices at 9 and then specifies that a new one be appointed every other year while the longest serving one is termed out. This way, justices would be appointed for a maximum term of 18 years. Paul D. Carrington is probably the best known exponent of this proposal. I had a chance to speak with Professor Carrington last year. He was 87 at the time. I learned from him about the people who still today are trying to get this into a constitutional amendment. So why can't we just pass an amendment and then another? In today's political environment, no amendment can be ratified. We face a dilemma similar to America's problem 230 years ago. The United States government was beyond repair. They had to throw it out and put in a new one. Am I qualified to write constitutions? No one on the face of the planet has written something similar successfully. We have to discover if this can be successful. Besides, I'm just a co-author. To give you an idea of my role, have a look at the Election Transparency and Security Act of 2018, designed as a constitutional amendment for California. I didn't write it, but I designed it and gave specifications to the lawyers. This is similar to what I mean when I say that we are writing these constitutions. That will do it for the answer today. By the way, there's quite a bit of material linked in the post I made today. It's for your reference. If you watch these weekly videos, you'll get it. The revolution is here. Stay tuned. That way, you'll know what to do. Thank you.